Hello and welcome back to Coral Tree Homestead. I'm just gearing up to get out into the garden and do a bit of a run around with you guys and show you where we're up to. So I've mulched a fair bit and just trying to keep the moisture in the soil, getting ready for drier times in the drought, which I can sort of feel is coming. Nobody knows when it will start or how long it will go for, but I think it's good to gear up and get ready for the warmer months. And having less water, which we can already sort of tell. A lot of the people in my street have bought water. This street, it doesn't get town water, so we have to get all our water trucked in, tank water. And so there are a few houses in the rest of the street I've noticed have been buying in water, and we are scraping through with our last little bit of water. So it's pretty important right now to conserve as much water as possible for our animals. They're the one thing that we need to keep alive. I don't mind vegetables dying if they don't have enough water, but we have to keep our livestock alive. So we are conserving water, and that means lots and lots of mulch, lots of soil, adding to the soil, a lot of organic matter being added into the soil to try and retain that moisture, having things in the soil that hold the moisture. We have sandy clay soils, so building that soil on top of our vegetable gardens to make sure that we can hold as much water when it does rain, and mulching to make sure we keep the water in from evaporating. And so that's really what we've been working on at the moment, and trying to not use any water and see what vegetables we can grow and how big they can get. Vegetables generally love water, and so it is a little bit tricky, a little bit of a challenge to grow vegetables with not a lot of water. So we have a new member of the temporary family, Sweet Cobber, who is come on, Cobber, temporary in here with Chili. Come on, Cobb. Because he's eaten a few chickens and he's in trouble. He is not quite working out. He doesn't know chickens very well. He doesn't know cows very well. So we have tried to look after him, and he's not quite working out. So like I said, he's such a sweet boy. He's such a sweet family dog, and he means well, but he's just not been around livestock very much. So right, so this is where we're at, guys. We're almost to the end of this paddock with vegetables. We've also planted 9 new fruit trees in the orchard. My sister came up from Melbourne to help me plant those lovely fruit trees, so that was nice. And this is where we're at. I'm gonna feed these pigs so they quiet down a little bit. All right, so we've got the tomatoes in. This is only two types in this bed. Chill. Only 2 different types in this bed. A large tomato and a cherry tomato. Shallots and lemongrass in the front here in the beds next to the chair. More lemongrass, I stocked up on that. And this soil is pretty much broken down cow manure. There's a bit of rhubarb in the front here. This soil is pretty much cow manure. And so it's holding moisture really well. You can see there. I have not watered that in probably, well, it rained a few days ago, but probably not enough to even get through the soil, and that's really still quite wet. So these plants are doing just fine because I've added a fair bit of cow manure into there, the same as the flower bed here with the berries in it. It's mainly made on cow manure, which is holding that moisture in really well. And then, as you can see, I've mulched it really well with hay. That hay is silage. Silage is like grass that they compress and roll and then wrap in plastic ready to ferment for livestock. The one that we had went a little bit moldy, so I couldn't feed it to the livestock, and so I've actually put that on the garden. It's a little bit risky because silage can definitely have grass seeds in it that can then germinate in your beds and create a whole heap more weeding, but I've laid it out pretty thick, and I'm sort of working on a no-till system where I just keep adding on top. So already in my garden bed at the moment, I don't do a lot of weeding. It's enormous and it would take forever to weed. So the way I'm doing it is these roads that border the vegetable garden stop the bad kikuyu grass from leaching in, because the kite grass really gets hold quick and likes to leach in. So I've put these roads around the perimeter. One day eventually they will be mulched, because I don't like to have bare soil, that's not good. So we'll mulch them, but that's cut down on the weeding a lot, and I've done that on every bed that we're going to go to today. These row covers are the bee's knees. They're the best thing when it comes to pest control, particularly in flying insects. I've found these to be the best for us. So this one's quite fine, this white one. This black one has holes in it, but just for germination and keeping that moisture in, I really like these row covers. So as you can see there, it's germy germin. Under that green mesh there, that's all our Brussels sprouts, cabbage, broccoli. We've pretty much harvested all the broccoli. Very little watering. We still have nice root vegetables popping up. So some black radish there that's you can see is enormous, and the soil's still really damp underneath the heavy mulch that I've been putting down. This is the start of our zucchinis. Cobb, go. Cobber, go. He means so well. It's just such a bullfed. The start of our... No, don't go in there. The start of our... Stay there. The start of our zucchinis there. I've got 3 in that bed. That will provide us with heaps of zucchinis. If you've ever grown squash or zucchini before, they are very abundant. They grow a lot of the same thing. Oh, there's a little bee on the ground. They grow a lot of the same... Yeah, harvested. So where those zucchinis were in the middle there, we've harvested all that broccoli, we've eaten it all. And then we've got a bit of lettuce. We've got garlic. That whole bed there is garlic. And then this bed here is our asparagus. I'm really excited how quick that took and how fast. The dogs are just ripping the garden apart. I love it. Yeah. How quick that asparagus took. I'm so happy. There's 8 plants there, and so we should have a fair bit of asparagus. This is my first year growing strawberries. This whole bed here is strawberries. You can see the little babies in there, and the only thing I'm going off there is that strawberries like straw. So that's all I've really done. I've created a really nice soil base with, again, cow manure. Guys, stop! Go away! With cow manure, and I've put my strawberries in there and then just cover them really heavily in straw, and hopefully they love it. I've got about 10 plants. I'm yet to do the rest of the bed. I've got to keep going down there. Oh, those dogs. All of this is potatoes. You can see all there, a nice big field of potatoes. There's 2 different types in there, a red variety and like a Sebago style white variety, and then these green covers following down, so you can see it's quite a lot of growing space. Coming all the way down to the end here is our second planting of broccoli, so you can see there they're going to be ready. Some of those are already, sorry, I'm trying not to turn you around too much. Some of these are already ready. So plenty of brassicas still growing. I could pick that already and eat that, and there's plenty in there already. So that's our second sowing of broccoli, and then we have a third sowing of broccoli. If the warmer months don't get too hot too quickly, we will have a third harvest of broccoli, and a few cauliflowers in there as well. I really like broccoli. We don't need a whole heap of cauliflower, but we really like broccoli, so we've planted a fair there. This is our second sowing of potatoes, and like the 4th sowing for this year. Already we've harvested a heap of potatoes, so just concession sowing all the vegetables we like to eat. That's really what I'm working hard to do, is concession sow. So we have vegetables year round, vegetables stored in the pantry, and vegetables in the ground growing, just trying to have food year round basically. We'll come down here. There's more potatoes, a few more plots of potatoes. And then these are our little butternut pumpkins I've already sowed. They're looking great. This whole mulched area is pumpkins, and so this will all spread out and have plenty of room. So I'm not worried too much if this part here doesn't have any planted in it. I'll probably just mulch it and leave the potatoes that are there, because these pumpkins will completely cover that bed by that time. The broccoli will be out and all the pumpkins will have covered this area. Skinny here is working on the next garden bed, the next veggie bed. So we're all the way down at the back of this paddock, and so she's working on the next veggie garden, ready for more pumpkins. I want to grow as much pumpkins as I possibly can. We've got plenty of room to store them, and plenty of animals that will eat them, as well as us. So yeah, I'll probably come through with the rotary hoe into Skinny's bed here, and I'll rotary hoe that whole thing. I don't know whether it will be planted early spring. It's probably looking like late spring to summer. We'll do a second concession sow of that in this new bed for Skinny, and I'm just trying to decide where to put her next, whether I go behind me here and keep a bed going that way, or whether I go into the next paddock and keep going with the beds. It's just sort of I'm monitoring how much mulch I have, because I can't do too many beds without enough mulch to cover them so they don't grow. Well, the dogs are going back away. Come on, Chili. I was just feeding the rabbits, and one of the dogs decided to jump up and try and bite one of the rabbits and pulled the leg off the rabbit, and so I had to put it down. Come on, Cobber, come on. He's not going to want to go back in there. He knows what's going on. He does not want to go back in there. So as I was saying, new dog is not quite working out. And so he has to be moved on to another house. Heading from the market garden, veggie garden, past the milk stand with Maggie and Honey, is the next bed. This bed has, I'm calling it patchwork bed, has potatoes in the front, all mulched, ready to sprout. And then we have onions, leeks, onions, garlic, leeks at the back. And that back part there is pretty much all potatoes as well. A few tomatoes still in from spring summer last year. There's still tomatoes growing. So we grew through the winter. We're in the last sort of week of winter now. We grew through the winter tomatoes, which is amazing, awesome. Where we live, we don't get hard frost. So a lot of the plants that normally get knocked out by frost don't here. So it's ripening through the start of winter. We did have a little bit of trouble ripening the tomatoes. I ended up having to put them with bananas, and they just didn't taste the same, and so we just stopped eating tomatoes for that time, and now we're back to eating tomatoes again. This here is our only raised bed on the place, and I planted parsnips. Last year was my first year growing parsnips, and it was rough. I'll try and see if I can find a photo to put here. They looked like spaghetti when, they're supposed to look like carrots. And so this year, I'm happy to say that the parsnips, which we've already harvested a lot of, look actually like carrots. And that's great for me. That's all I need. And again, this soil, it's got worms in it. This soil's made up from a lot of rabbit manure and rabbit bedding, because it is so close to the rabbit hutches. And you can see there's a little baby parsnip that's still got plenty of growth. And there's some bigger ones. There's some bigger ones in here, and some that I've already harvested and put through soups and stews and things like that. There's a nice big one right there. So plenty of parsnips, and once these parsnips come out, I'm going to fill that bed full of carrots, because you can never have too many carrots. Where we are, you can never have too many carrots. They take a little bit longer than we would like them to grow, so we've got to make sure we keep on top of them. All right, let's have a look here. Haven't revisited these, but it's all looking good. The Jap pumpkins are popping up. There's no pest damage, currently no pest damage, and they all look sprightly and great. So all those little mulch plots there are Jap pumpkins. I'm yet to fill the front. Probably will fill this whole bed with pumpkins. We prepared this bed by tilling it a little bit. After having pigs in here, we had pigs in here for a long time. Then we tilled it and turned it up. Then I've made these roads around the outside to keep the kike grass out, and so we covered it then in builder's plastic for about a month, just to help sprout the seeds that were in the soil, and then they die off with that black plastic too. So they sprout, germinate, and then they die off with that black plastic because it gets too hot. Okay, the green tunnel. Possibly my favourite growing space. It's our oldest growing space. This has been here for 6 years. It's had a crazy amount of different vegetables in it. In between having a garden in it, we've put chickens and roosters in here. It's such a sheltered spot for chickens and roosters and things. So it's absolutely jamming. It's going great. There's heaps of action in here. So excited about that. The only issue I have is that, you know, these are radishes, right? They look enormous, they look great, but this is the root. So this is the size of the plant and this is the root. Way too much nitrogen in the soil. Root vegetables don't do well on nitrogen because they grow too much foliage and not enough root. So I'm putting that down to the fact that I had chickens. I had a chicken bed right here. They're manuring all night, and then I've turned it into the soil and there's just way too much nitrogen. So tiny little radishes. It's not the end of the world. They're still a radish. They still taste fine. But I've been feeding the foliage here to the rabbits because there's a lot of it. And, you know, I'm hoping by doing that, by taking the foliage off, that I'll encourage the plant to grow more root or to put more energy into the root. But that is one of the trickier things that I've run into gardening, is too much nitrogen. We do have a lot of animal manures that we're able to add to the soil. This is my first time having that problem, but researching it myself, it sort of said mulch heavily. The mulch will draw the nitrogen out of the soil, or obviously plants that like a lot of nitrogen. You know, if this was kale, wouldn't be an issue, but because it's a root vegetable, I'm having a little bit of trouble. So yeah, if you do have any info, drop a comment below. Otherwise, I will take these radishes out and harvest what I can harvest, and then I'll plant a leafy green in here. Hey Bruce. Hey Brucey. This is Bruce's favourite spot, the cat. He loves it in here. Alright, so yeah, jamming along in here. I think that's about it. I've only got a herb garden next to the house that I'm really dealing with. Otherwise, the citrus orchard is pumping. We've got heaps of citrus. Really good year for citrus fruit for us. And then we've got the new trees. We put in 3 apples, a few nectarines, pears, but a few of those you have to plant 2 for cross-pollination. So I'm excited to get fruit trees in the ground. And we are yet to amend some more holes for the fruit trees and get a really nice big orchard going. I am sprouting more macadamias. We have a few macadamia trees here. I am sprouting more macadamias. So I'm going to need some holes to put those new macadamia trees in. This here's a sunflower. Look how tall it's already got. So I'll be planting my sunflowers very soon. That's sort of what I'm going off with, how quick I can plant things in the ground. You know, normally you don't plant things until spring. You don't plant vegetables until spring. But when the volunteers start popping up, like I've got volunteer sunflowers and volunteer tomatoes, I know that they're thinking it's okay to grow. So I'm going to take a bit of a risk and put them in the ground early. Obviously that's not 100% because volunteers can still be knocked out by frost, but I'm pretty comfortable with the days being warm enough, and I'm taking the risk on planting some veggies early. So radishes are right there, right? These are Swedes or rutabagas, and they're not going too bad. There's a little bit too much foliage for root growth, but a lot of them are forming up roots. Just this weed is taking over. It's taking over my carrots. Great amount of kale and some more silver beet. Coriander's doing just fine, and the peas along the back are loving it. I'm hoping to see some flowers on them soon. They're getting very tall. But yeah, everything's loving it in here, and this is, yeah, one of my favorite beds. In the form of the silage that I use on my garden beds to mulch my garden beds to keep in the moisture. That is so important. But the root of that silage is the fact that it was spoiled, it went moldy, and I couldn't feed it to my livestock anymore. You know, that's anywhere from $80 to $180 wasted depending on the bale. I could see that as a negative thing and beat myself up about it, that I didn't take care of that silage bale like I should have. Or I can view it as a positive because now I have cheaper mulch. That's the cheapest way to buy mulch. And so keeping your spirits up and not burning out is really important when you homestead. Vegetables failing as a negative thing anymore, but rather just an opportunity to learn. A lot of gardening is just learning from your mistakes. It's probably a good thing that seeds are cheap because there are a lot of mistakes to make. You know, next time I won't put, you know, root vegetables where I know there could be potentially a lot of nitrogen, and so I've learnt that lesson. And so I have quite a large vegetable garden now because I am confident that I can grow a few things well with a low amount of risk, but I would have never got here unless I started gardening on a smaller scale. Been playing around a little bit with heating up our compost piles. Yeah, you come and put it in. This one here is already done and cool, and then this one here we've just started to put manure into, and it's definitely warm. We're just going to pop a thermometer into it. Pop it in, good boy, all the way in. Yeah, turn it around. It's not going to give me an accurate reading of the middle because it's not long enough to get to the middle, this tiny little thermometer here.
That's hot.
That's hot, yeah. It feels really hot to touch. You can take it out now, Walt. Yeah, we might have to get a bigger thermometer to be able to have an accurate reading, but we're doing that so that it kills any bad guys in there. It will kill out the bacteria and the bad guys from the manure, and it will also kill any of the seeds in there when it gets too hot. Like, that's really hot. That's really hot to touch. It'll kill off any of the seeds. So when we go to put it on our garden, we won't have seeds germinating, weed seeds germinating. It should just be a really nice compost. One is very cold. It's sort of 60 degrees Fahrenheit, so like a 20 degree pile, which is the temperature inside. I just had this thermometer inside in the soil in one of my house plants, and it was a lot of times you would sieve it, but I'm not going to worry about it. I don't mind if there's bigger bits of chip in there, but it's just a really nice composted soil. You can see it's nice and wet, and it clumps really well. It's holding water really well, so it's ready to use. All right, let's go, Walt. I had my brother just drop off a big pile of wood chip as well, so we've got some nice wood chip for our ornamental gardens. And over there, that far pile is like a really fine wood chip, good for when you're germinating seedlings. It's not too heavy and it doesn't weigh them down. And then over there in the distance, you can see those pile. That one right there is silage hay, which is also what I'm using to mulch the gardens with, which is it's spoilt from our livestock. We wanted to feed it to our livestock, but it went too moldy, so we didn't end up feeding them. You're going to measure that one? And so, yeah, that's just one way that we're closing the circle here. We don't buy in any soil. We haven't bought soil for years now because we're playing around with these compost piles. This is the first time I've actually measured the temperature. The way we're getting heat in there is just through the nitrogen to carbon ratio. Nitrogen being manure and green waste breaking down, and carbon being the brown dry material. So if you have a good combination of wet and dry ingredients, carbon and nitrogen ingredients, then your pile should heat up. If it's not hot enough, you need to add more nitrogen. If it's too hot, you need to add more carbon, etc. That's where that soil starts. So this is the laneway where the cows are. You can see there's a few cow pats and mulch up the top there. The cows will come through and walk over the top of it a few times and push the manure into the mulch and mix it with their feet. And so all I've done is pushed that soil then down to this point here. and you can see that it's sort of mixed with hay and wood chip, and it's not really recognizable as cow manure anymore. And then I'll scoop this up, pop it into the white palicon there, and take that down to the compost pile, which I'll mix with more dry matter, any more hay or spent grain, rabbit bedding and things like that, and that's where the soil process starts. I'm out here in the garden quite early this morning. My husband's been making me a coffee before he leaves for work at 5:30, and that sort of wakes me up, and I love it. Yeah, just to say goodbye and to have a nice hot coffee in bed. I'm chuffed. So I'm out here quite early this morning getting a jump on the garden. One thing that I'm doing this season that I haven't done in past seasons is thinking about my weeds in a whole different frame of mind. Weeds, just through doing a lot of research into no-till, which means you're just layering the soil instead of rotary hoeing it and digging it up all the time. You're just layering the soil. You never rotary hoe after the initial planting. And so I've come out with the compost that I was talking about, and I'm just layering it on top of the soil. And there's little to no weeds this time of year. It's cooler. Once it starts to heat up, the weeds will start to take over. But any weeds that I'm finding, so this is capsicums here. This is a row of capsicums. Any weeds, tiny weeds that I'm finding, I'm throwing into these trenches, and that is to improve the soil. So weeds are like miners, right? So they dig their roots down into the soil to find nutrients that your soil is lacking. And so if you pick those weeds and you take them to the compost, if you put them in a pile by themselves, you're losing a lot of those nutrients from the area that they need to be. So by almost chop and dropping, which means cutting and laying back down onto the soil, you're adding into the top layer those nutrients that are deficient in your soil. So this year I'm looking at my weeds in a whole different light. So I've got these trenches, these pathways in between my growing sections, and I'm just putting the weeds into the path. Then eventually I will come through with soil on top of these paths and start growing again. That way they're not taking over my beds, but I'm not moving them very far from where the nutrients are lacking. You can learn a lot from your weeds. A little bit of a mix up with the farrier. So I've got the horses out in the round yard, so I've just got to go run and put them back into the paddock. And then I'll have to get them back out on Friday to have their feet done. Ed and Walt, my two boys, are just having a rest. We've just had some lunch, and once they are back with me, I've got to go down to the paddock down there. You probably can't see her. She's pretty far. She's pretty far down there. A little white speck, but Maple's got through to the wrong side, so she should be in with Reggie. Reggie's down under the tree. She's gone over, so we'll have to open up the gate and try and get her back in the side she's supposed to be in. We had our second lamb of the season born this morning. It's healthy and well and feeding off mum already. I walked out and saw a few extra legs under the sheep and got really excited, and the boys and I ran down and had a look, and it's a bit
It's a cheese.
little boy. The first lamb we had didn't make it. It was stillborn. I have some maiden ewes, sheep that haven't lambed before, and so I think there was a bit of trouble, and she didn't deliver it, and it was sort of still in its placenta and didn't get delivered. So